So I am really excited to be here today with Janene Liston. And hi, Janene.
Hi, Melita. So happy to be here.
So you are Janene Liston, aka the pricing lady. But I happen to know you weren't always a pricing lady. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to build your business around helping small businesses and, well, all companies really with their pricing strategies?
Mhm. Yeah. So I started my career. Actually, I can even go a short step backwards. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember one year, I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, I had an uncle in the family and he said, "So Janine, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, what do you like?" I said, "Math and science." He said, "Why don't you be an engineer?" And I said, "Okay." So I actually studied engineering. I got a degree in structural engineering and I was a building designer for about 3.5 years. I have an abnormal obsession with bridges. I love bridges. So if you're ever in the car with me and we come across a bridge, you may see me get very excited.
You have to talk to my husband. Ever since I first met him, he's always talked about the first bridge he built.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And there's one here in Switzerland that I studied in university. And I was on a road trip with friends once. And I was driving and we came across, I didn't know where in Switzerland it was, but we came across it. And I started screaming, my bridge, and jumped out of the car, yelled at them to give me a camera. And then the rest of the road trip, anytime we saw a bridge, they would all start screaming, "My bridge." And still to this day occasionally do. So anyways, yeah, that's how I started my career as an engineer. And after 3 years, I realized that I wanted something that had more interaction with other people. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know what, and I mean, in engineering university, when you study engineering, you really learn how to solve problems. So I use those skills every day, but I just decided to, redirect what I was doing. I worked for a high voltage engineering company in the area of, say, technical product management and marketing. And it was just with this company that I ended up moving from the States to Switzerland back in 2001. And then I got a job as a global pricing manager shortly after coming to Switzerland for Siemens, the building technologies group. And this was the first time that I was fully dedicated to pricing. I have to say, I wasn't really sure 100% what the possibilities were in doing that. I didn't have a certification and I had done some of it in my previous role, but I was, just doing it based on intuition rather than training, I could say. So I went and got a certification from the Professional Pricing Society as a certified pricing professional. And at the time, I think I was one of the first 40 or 50 people worldwide to have that designation.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting.
And you mentioned earlier that at the time you didn't really appreciate the possibilities of pricing strategy, where that could take you or how it would really fit into businesses. How do you see pricing now? How do you see how pricing fits into any business? And is pricing strategy something that's relevant for any size of business, or is it just for the huge businesses with a massive portfolio?
Right. So I think prior to my education, if you will, and the experience, just really focusing on this, I like most people thought that was, pricing was just finding a number to put on your goods or your services. And that was, basically all you needed to do. And it was kind of like, well, what's the big deal? And once I got into it, I realized that actually there's a lot more to it. It's not just price, it's pricing. And pricing is a series of activities that you're doing in your business. And I like to compare it to, it actually enables you to steer. So it's kind of like a steering wheel in a sense, that when you're pricing, when you understand pricing in your business and how you can use it to help you meet your financial or commercial objectives, then it actually allows you to steer and correct course and do different things to make sure that your pricing is always fit for purpose. And by that, I mean, it's actually supporting what you want to do in your business. I've seen time and time again in big and small companies where their pricing is actually at odds with their brand or their commercial strategy, or simply, you know, how they want to be perceived in the market.
Yeah, I remember with my first company that I worked with, the CEO was like, I started off working in project management and sales a little bit, and then I developed a marketing department, which was really what I wanted to be doing. So I created my own job. And my CEO's advice when it came to pricing, or it was a furniture company, it was like, well, it's the cost plus 10%, and then you tell people the price, and if they say that's okay, then you say plus VAT. And if they're like, how much? You say, oh, that's including VAT. And that was his pricing strategy.
Right.
But then when I moved on and I did my master's in marketing, and of course pricing is one of the 7Ps of marketing, and seeing how it can be used in different ways and what it can signal to the market. And it can, yeah, as you say, if it's not in alignment with what you're trying to achieve in every other aspect of your business, then you really shoot yourself in the foot. And it all has to come together. And so I got my first glimpse of just how, not necessarily complex, but how impactful your pricing can be on everything else. And but it also often is the case, isn't it, that they come up with a company will come up with its branding and its messaging and all that sounds perfect, but then nothing else backs that up in terms of the client experience. And pricing has got to be a huge part of the client experience, because every sale is emotional, and the price is the kind of tag that you're putting on that emotion or the benefit. So where do you even start with finding the right price?
Yeah. So in my belief that the right price itself is always going to come from a deep understanding of your customer. So one of the things that I think shocks or surprises, maybe shock is too strong a word, but a lot of my clients, is that one of the first things we do is we really narrow it down to one target group. And this is so that we can create offers that are specific to that group and prices that are fitting that group. And it doesn't mean, I think a lot of people have a fear that when you do that, then you're saying you don't want to sell to anyone else. No. You're just saying, this is the group that I want to get first and foremost. These are the kinds of people that I want to be around and be working with, or the kinds of people that I want to be using my products. But then in step 2, then you go and you figure out, okay, who else do I want to work with? What offers can I have for them? What price points do I need from them? So, but it always starts, because the price is going to be based on the value people perceive they're going to get, right? And the only people who can determine the value are the customer. So it has to start with the customer.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I think whatever you're trying to achieve in business has to start with the customer. And that may be my marketing background coming in, but I've seen it time and time again. And the companies that go ahead and create these amazing things without that customer understanding and building that into what they're doing never get terribly far, or they end up spending a fortune doing a U-turn or changing things around a little bit. So it's really the start point of anything you want to achieve in business, and it feeds everything.
Let's be honest about it. It's not always easy, right? Sometimes it's really hard to have that focus, or to really determine, okay, this is who I want to go after. But however, at the same time, it is a very important aspect, not just of pricing, but in a customer-centric business. Yeah, a business where the customers is really at the center of what you're bringing out into the world. And I think that's what most businesses are trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. It takes a certain amount of courage to say, this is my customer group, because the fear, as you mentioned, is then that you're telling everyone else, oh, I'm not going to work with you. But that's not how it works. You still attract, like I'm a business coach for women, but I still attract men, and I still work with men. But my focus is on developing programs that suit a female leadership style typically. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for men, and there aren't men that benefit from that style either. So it's just having that courage to kind of put that flag in the sand and say, this is what I stand for, and this is what I'm creating, and this is how it's going to help this specific group. But it doesn't mean you can't work with anyone else. So once you have your price, is that it?
No.
I thought
Definitely not. And this is the thing. So before you were talking about You were talking about how, your price tells something to the marketplace, to the competitors, to clients, potential clients, and anybody else who's watching. And it's true that the number is only one piece of the puzzle, but your actions around your pricing, how you speak about it, whether or not you offer special discounts, whether or not, some people will put, in an offer that they make, they'll say, you get this and it has a value of this and this has a value of that. And they'll say, but slash, 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 you get it for this. That tells people something about your business, your brand, how you work, how you want to be perceived. And so all the communication that goes along with your pricing, I call this the follow through. So we set the prices and then we have to go get them. But in order to get them, we have to have the communication piece. There's a lot of psychology. I say this all the time. Pricing is all about the psychology, baby, because it really, really is. And it's your actions, your words, written or spoken, have often a bigger influence on people's perception of whether or not the price is good or not, than the price itself. So you have to follow through with the right communication.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful lesson, and not just in respect to pricing, but in any way that you're reaching out, that it all has to feel coherent for the client to feel confident in making that decision. Otherwise, if there's a mismatch there, they'll feel it. They'll feel there's something missing. It's not quite coming together, and they won't have that confidence. And if they don't have confidence, or if they're confused in any way whatsoever, as I say, if you're confused, you lose. So it has to come together as a whole. Which brings me on to another point. So very often, particularly with people at the earlier stages of their business, and women especially, well, I don't know if it's especially, but certainly that's my world, is I see it more often with the female entrepreneurs, is having the courage to have a price. I know a lot of women who have a very successful business, but then you actually speak to them and you realize they're not charging anyone anything, or they're charging just such a small amount that it's not really what you could call a viable business going forward. Do you have any tips for people on setting a price and having the courage to tell people that price and stand up for their worth?
Right. So Another really important element of feeling confidence in your prices or your pricing, both, we could say both, is understanding what you're basing your prices upon. Now, this seems like a no-brainer thing to say, right? But I find that people don't really go through, and probably because they've never been taught how, a concrete process for setting their prices. So I did this a couple months ago with a client of mine, and we got to a certain point and she had this dual epiphany. She sent me a text and she goes, since we ended our call, I've been sitting here in tears. And I was like, oh no, right? It's like, okay, do we need to get on the phone? She goes, no, happy tears, because you helped me understand two things. One, with the prices I was charging, it was better not to start the business at all, because I could never, ever make enough money without killing myself. And even then she didn't think she could, even if she just completely put all in and didn't really care about her health, she still couldn't make enough money to make it feel like it was worth her while. And second of all, she goes, you helped me to understand the worth of what I offer people, but also help me see that I need to stand up and understand, because I understand that value or that worth that I bring, I understand my own worthiness in a sense as well. Yeah. And this is really, really important. If you base your prices on pulling out of thin air or wherever you're pulling it out of, right? Then of course, how can you feel confident about that? It's almost impossible. So you want to base your pricing on a very thorough, doesn't have to be complicated, but a very sound, let me use the word sound, thought process. And if you do that, that alone will give you a lot of confidence, because you'll be like, well, my price is this for this reason, because it brings this value, because it'll help me have a business that, can be sustainably profitable. And I've based it on understanding my place in the marketplace, for
Yeah.
example, right? So, and really there's only a few things that will help you determine that, but most people they've never been taught that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's quite hard, particularly if you're starting out in business and it's just you, or you're the leader of a small business. Then we tend to fuse the business and ourselves.
Yeah.
And so by putting a price on our services, we're saying that's what we're personally worth. And that can feel very scary. So I think it's important
Yes.
to make the separation of you, the person, and you, the business, which can be very different. And as you say, focus in on what that value is that you're creating in the marketplace and how that compares to what else is out there. And then you can very quickly see that, or feel more confident in standing up for your worth, which is so important, and not often an easy thing to go through, as your client's experience highlights, but so important. And without having that, then you're always going to be holding yourself back in business. Or there are the exceptions of the other way around, where people say, oh yeah, I'm worth like $10,000 an hour. But not based on any value. They don't have the communications or the testimonials or anything to back that up as to why they're worth that much, because maybe they are, but unless you can prove that to yourself and the marketplace, then it doesn't work either. So it's really finding that sweet spot.
It is. And it's a balance. I'd rather, if I'm going to find out where the boundaries are, I'd rather find the upper limit first rather than the lower. Because let's face it, if you are having a business, you are a business owner and you are there to earn a profit. Now, I know that some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to face it or accept it. But the reality is if you don't have a profit, you don't have a business. A business owner, it doesn't mean you're chasing after profit at all and any cost, but it means you understand what it takes for you to have a profitable business at the level that you want it to be, and that you understand how your business decisions will either help or hinder that.
Yeah. And I know my experience and the experience of others has been as well, that when they've underpriced themselves, they've attracted really nightmare clients who haven't been enjoyable to work with, that have put them under a lot of pressure. And it's the lower end of the market is maybe easier or more comfortable to price yourself that way, but it often doesn't have the rewards that you expect. But putting that high price can feel quite scary. And I guess when you have a higher price, you have a higher chance of rejection. So how do you handle that? So if you test out the higher end of the market and you get a lot of rejection, do you have any tips on how people can handle that?
Right. So first of all, don't be afraid of a no. Yeah. And in a first case, a no is often an opportunity for exploration. So when someone says, "Ooh, that's too expensive," or that's not for me," then you can simply either be silent, and silence usually elicits the other person to say something because they want to fill that silence. So they'll start trying to explain why they've said that. Or you can ask them, okay, so why is that? Or why do you feel that's more expensive, or compared to what? So I see that, the first time someone says that, I might ask a few questions to help them to process, well, why am I saying that? What's the purpose here? In other cases, what you can do is, sometimes the best way to serve a client is to send them somewhere else. So maybe this isn't a good fit, or for whatever reason, could be the price, could be something else. But maybe someone who does something similar, but does it at in a different way that might be more suitable to them. So I think there's many different ways to handle it. The main thing is you've got to keep a cool head in that moment. And what happens when we hear what we think or perceive as a no in any context is our reptilian brain kind of goes into panic mode, and then we stop thinking logically, and that's when we start stuttering or offering discounts that we know we shouldn't be offering, and these types of things. So I tell my clients to say, first thing is take a deep breath, because the oxygen will help keep the cognitive part of your brain functioning. Yeah. And more in control. And then the next thing, either stay silent and wait for them to follow up, or, dig deeper to find out why.
Yeah, great advice. And I was told once that if someone says no to your pricing, it's not no, not interested, I'm never going to buy this. It's more, no, I haven't seen the value yet. So taking your advice to explore a little bit more what's behind that no can to help you find out more about what they're actually looking for. And then you can turn things around very often. And it's happened to me a few times when people go, oh, that's a bit expensive, and then you've explored that a bit more, coached them through the decision, and in the end they were like, wow, that was the best decision I ever made, because they when they understood the value and then got the benefit of the value once they committed to that. It's been a big turnaround, which has then in turn given me the confidence to stick with those pricing and keep coaching people. And there are some people where it isn't the right thing for them, as you say. And I think in every sale, when you go into it, you have to be prepared to say no if it's not right for them, or pass them to someone else if they're looking for something else, rather than offering the discounts and the kitchen sink.
Right.
Which
You have lots of options, right? I
yeah,
think that's the important thing to remember, is there are lots of different options, and a lot of people, I think they feel their only option is to adjust the price. And actually there are a lot of other options before you get to the point of needing to adjust the price, or
yeah.
considering to adjust the price. Yeah.
And I guess preparation is key for that as well, to think through in advance, what are the questions you can ask, what is the point, what else can you offer them, rather than reducing the price, what do you need to know. And so to have that preparation and in the background will help you to have that discussion and stay calm too.
The more prepared you are for those discussions, the more let's say, don't want to put it that way, you'll feel more in control of the situation. And we all know that we like to be in control of things. Right? But you'll just feel more relaxed, because you'll feel like, okay, I've thought about this. And when they ask a question, maybe it's one you've actually already thought about how you're going to answer. And then when they ask you something that you haven't prepared for, you somehow, your level of confidence is always already a little bit higher.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned discounts.
Yes.
Where do you stand on discounts?
My stance on discounts is, it depends on your strategy. So if you are targeting a group of customers who are bargain shoppers, then you will have one of two strategies. One is everyday low price kind of strategy, or the other is I offer lots of discount strategies. So it depends on your business model. Now, if you're going to be a premium supplier of some sort, then probably discounting is not really going to be part of your strategy, right? So it really depends on, who am I targeting? What am I offering? What perception do I want to give people? Now, if you're in a business where you're giving discount, where you wouldn't normally be giving discounts, so maybe you do project business and occasionally you might do something, I always talk about discounts always come with a trade-off. So that's something very good to keep in mind. Let me repeat that, because I said it kind of fast. Discounts always come with a trade-off. So when you're discounting, if you think of a scale, price on one side and value on the other, and you've made an offer and you feel that they're equal, and then the customer says something and the scale starts to slip one way or the other, usually the price is higher and the value feels lower for them, right? And they say they're seeing price and, sorry, lost my train of thought. They're seeing that the price and the value are out of whack and it needs adjustment. So they ask for a discount. Can you lower the price? And you might say, well, let me add a deal sweetener instead. I can't move on the price, but I can throw X, Y, Z in for you. Then you brought the scale back into balance. Or you could say, well, actually, let me take some, if you think the price is too high, let me take some of the value out. And then we can adjust the price accordingly to bring things back. So you kind of end up moving both sides of the scale to come to somewhere where it's a balance. So if you think about it, you always, this is why I say discounts always come with a trade-off. There should always be some sort of trade-off on the value side when you're offering discounts.
Yeah, great advice. It's worth thinking through it a little bit more than just throwing it out there and they're like, well, I'm not sure. Oh, I'll give you 30% discount. And then you realize, oh, I'm actually working for free.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget. I mean, if you think back to your own behavior over the years, how many times you said, oh, that's too expensive, I'm not going to buy that. And probably the money was sitting in the bank. So it wasn't that you couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
It might have been that you felt it was too much for what it was, but it wasn't about affordability. It was really about priority and perception of value. So a lot of times when we say, oh, I can't afford that, we say that because it's actually not a priority for us for some reason. And so sometimes I think that you can test that out by sweetening the deal somehow, or if you offer them with some, a lower, a smaller offer with different value, then you can test out, is it really priority? Is it really misperception of the value, or is it really affordability?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Great advice. And I think that comes back to what you were saying right at the very beginning, know your customer and what value you add and what they perceive as value as well, because it has to be where the two align is where the value really is.
Right.
And yeah, it's always a great question to ask, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, if the price of this was zero, what else would hold you back from this decision? And then you can really start to see that it's often, as you say, it's not the price. There's some other aspect that's concerning them there that they can,
Right.
that you can work through. But it's always like when you have the courage and you've practiced a little bit to have those conversations, it's always so interesting, and you can learn so much about your client and the marketplace from having an initial no and then take a step back to explore what that is and understand how you can share your value in a more compelling way, or have more clarity around that, or what they're really looking for. And it can be fun.
Well, lean into the no when you get it. Lean into it with a curiosity mind, kind of like put on your explorer hat and take out your little Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass and, try and lean into it, because actually no I'm not saying that no isn't no. Please don't mistake me here, but be curious about that, because what you might find is that if you tweaked your offer, you might actually get a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a no in this case. If somebody said no 6 times, okay, leave them alone. But the first no, do a little more digging and try to understand what's behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. I love that. Lean into the no. Janene, you have shared so much valuable advice. It's just been incredible. And I think everyone listening is going to have I'm sure they've come away with a much clearer understanding of what pricing should mean within their business and how to start thinking about that as a bit more strategically to get the results that they're looking for. Is there any final piece of advice that you feel people should really know about pricing their business, or just succeeding in business on any level?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that I would say, and this is based on my own journey in having my business. And one is that, I perceived before I got into this as a career journey. It's all about my career, the pricing lady, da, 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 da. What I didn't anticipate is that having your own business is actually a personal journey. And people may have told me that up front. But that was something that caught me by surprise in many ways. And as a result of that, it brings me to the second point, is that we can't be experts in everything. And yet in a business, especially when you're first starting, you may feel that you need to do everything. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself and act as self-care for yourself, as well as support your business itself, is to get help. So get a mentor, get a coach. If there's a topic, you don't know how to do social media, find somebody who can, and if you can't afford it, then, just consume their free of charge content until you get there. And then when the time is right, you'll know who's out there and you'll be able to choose who you want to work with on that specifically. But, get help and have a network. There's no need for you to reinvent the wheel everywhere and be an expert in everything.
Amazing advice. And I remember very early on, before I started on business, actually, I think I was 25, so I was very much in the early stages of my career. And I realized about that pricing value, that there's always a trade-off, because there was one of my lecturers in my master's degree was the PR expert to Philip Green, who owned the British High Street at the time. So he was like really knew his stuff when it comes to PR, and I needed some PR advice. So I thought, dare I ask him, because he was so successful. So I thought, well, I'll just ask. He can only say no. And then I said, well, maybe I could help him in some respect. And this is going back some time ago. And he was like, actually, do you know what PowerPoint is? I was like, yeah, I use that all the time. He was like, great. If you could do my PowerPoint slides, because he had this big presentation he had to give, but he didn't even know what PowerPoint was. And then he helped me with my PR skills. So even going to someone at the top of their profession, if you're looking for advice and you don't have the money to pay for it, then there may be something that they would value that you can offer and have some kind of trade-off there even. So Absolutely. It's always worth asking and having that conversation. And you will often be surprised at what you come away with. Yeah. Or start a podcast and then you can interview them for their expertise. So thank you so much, Janene. It's just been really wonderful. So for anyone out there who is listening to this podcast on the go, how can they find you?
So they can find me at thepricinglady.com, or they can go over to Facebook, and I have a Facebook group called Charge Your Worth with the Pricing Lady. You can find me everywhere with the Pricing Lady. Let's put it that way.
That's nice and easy to remember. We like that.
It is.
So I'll put all your links below this video on the page as well. But for those who are out and about, when you get back online to your phone or wherever, the Pricing Lady, and you'll find Janene.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melita. It was a pleasure.